because you're trying to stick to a new diet or an old diet, or you're trying to save some money, or you have a big family and now it's really, really hard to go out to eat. It's too expensive. Or if you enjoy cooking, but you don't feel like you get to do it enough, or you want to cook with your children and you want to teach them a little bit more about eating healthier. Whatever your reasons, meal planning can be very satisfying. It can also be very daunting if you feel like you don't know what you're doing, which is the great thing about the internet, because you can learn from other people's mistakes. I've spent the last several years persistently trying to get this right, and it's taken me about that long to be really consistent with cooking the meals that I plan for my family each week. So whether you're an absolute beginner and this is brand new, uncharted waters for you, or if you've tried before and you failed, this video includes my tips and tricks for meal planning success. This information will help you become consistent in cooking meals for yourself and your family. Just know you can do this. But like President Eisenhower said, planning is everything. Keep watching to the end of the video to get my kid-friendly, mostly healthy, not straight out of the jar spaghetti recipe. Find a meal planning notepad or system that makes you excited to do meal planning. Really what you're trying to get rid of is something that's difficult for you to use. This one is the one that I started out with, and it's pretty good, but I grew out of it fairly quickly because the spaces are so small. At first, when I was only doing dinners, I would just write them all the way across, but then whenever I started doing lunch and breakfast, there was absolutely no room, especially if I was planning an entree and sides, and then there was really absolutely no room. So what I went to from that actually was grid paper, where I can make the squares as big as I want, and then I type it up and put it in Excel, and then I stick it on the board, which is another tip that I have, to post whatever you use for your meal planning. Post it where the rest of your family can see it. Now, they're still going to ask you what's for dinner, but at least you'll get the satisfaction of pointing out that they could have figured it out on their own. Here are two that I found on Amazon that I really like. They both have the shopping list on the side, which I think is really helpful, and they both have magnets on the back. This one has it broken up in breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and this one does not. This one can be very useful if you don't eat 3 meals a day, or if you want to plan snacks, or if you eat 6 meals a day, or if you're just doing dinners and then you go to dinners and lunch. This one is very, very flexible, which I really like. I also got this one off of Amazon, and at first I thought it was good until I received it and I looked at it a little closer. So it has game plan: spend less, cook more, eat more veggies. Great, right? The last one is eat more cake. I don't think that's what we're going for. I mean, maybe, I don't know about you, but I'm not trying to eat more cake. I think I eat plenty. And then at the bottom it says, or we can just get takeout, which is incredibly defeating if the whole point of what you're trying to do is not get takeout. Look at your calendar when you're meal planning. You need to know what days you're going to be home late. You need to know what days you're going to have plenty of time to cook. You need to know what days you're going to be really tired, or what days you're going to have something really emotionally difficult on. On those days, I like to plan something very comforting. For the days I get home late, those are also normally the days that I'm pretty tired. I want to get my kids in bed as quickly as possible. I find that urge, like whenever I get home, I have to get them in bed. So I do not plan meals that take any longer than 30 minutes. And normally they're pretty easy meals, just because I don't want to have to think. My brain is already saturated from the day. Slow cooker meals are also really good for days that you get home late. You also need to pay attention to who's going to be there for that meal. So my husband's a firefighter, and he's gone 2 to 3 nights a week. I don't plan anything special or complicated or new, for that matter, whenever it's just me and the kids. I know they're going to want spaghetti or pancakes or waffles. I plan the really special stuff like gumbo that takes me 2 hours to make. I only plan that for nights that my husband is home. Have a set day of the week that you do your meal plan. So for me, that's Sunday. I write out on our whiteboard what appointments we have that week, and then I go straight into my meal plan usually. I have just reviewed everything that we're doing, but I still have my calendar out, and I find that Sundays I have a little more time usually, so it's a pretty good day for me to meal plan. I make the grocery list at the same time, and I try to go that day, and if I can't, I try to go the next day. So that leads into my next point. On Mondays, I don't plan a meal that I don't already have all the ingredients for. When you're starting out meal planning, or if you haven't been consistent, start with just dinner. It sounds kind of obvious when you say it this way, but you don't necessarily think about it when you're super excited and you're ready to meal plan and you want to do breakfast, lunch, and dinner and everything. But 21 meals is a lot more than 7 meals. And the more times you miss what you plan for each meal, the more defeated you're going to feel. So in order to have better success, just plan your dinners. And if you want to kind of plan lunches, you can have leftovers for lunch. But start out with just dinner. That's kind of what I did. I started with dinner and then I added lunch and then I finally started adding breakfast as well. Start small and work bigger. Have all of your recipe options out whenever you're meal planning. I find it is really difficult unless you have a list or you have cards like I have. These are my tried and true recipes. These are my new recipes. And these are some cookbooks that I really trust. I find it really hard to just come up with all my recipes off the top of my head. I can think of like 4. Pork chops and veggies, whole chicken and veggies, salad, spaghetti. That's about what I got. Oh, pancakes. So I got 5. It's really important to have them all out whenever you're planning. That way you don't get stuck in the same rut and you're just making the same thing every week. Unless that's what you like. Unless your family is not adventurous, you don't need variety, you just want to make the same thing over and over. That's perfectly fine. I can't do that. I need variety. I need to try new recipes. I have found these cookbooks especially have taught me a lot about cooking itself. So the way it works for me is I mark down the days that my husband's going to be gone. I go ahead and I fill those in with spaghetti, pancakes, pork chops. Okay, I fill those in with things I know that my kids are going to eat. And then I start looking through. I kind of think, oh, we have some chicken that I want to use, or I have ground turkey, or a bunch of ground beef that I want to use, or I know that my husband's going to require steaks at some point this week. So then I can start to see if I also have my calendar out, which I don't have right now, but if I also have my calendar out, then I can also look at the days that are going to be, that I'm going to get home late. And so I'm going to look through and I want to use, okay, so I have some chicken. And as I'm looking through my recipes, I'm thinking, which one of these that won't take very long? So Mexican meatballs, that doesn't take me very long to make. I know that. So I'll put that to the side. And I kind of take the recipes that I kind of make groups of recipes. So quick recipes, more complicated recipes, and then I just kind of fill them in. It's kind of like meal planning Tetris. With all the recipes that I haven't tried, I kind of have them organized based on diet. So the one that I go for a lot is Whole30. So I have a lot of Whole30 recipes, but I also have a lot of paleo recipes. And I kind of, sometimes I'll lump them together and sometimes I don't. But so I have them organized by breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I also like to look through these cookbooks. Now, I'm not affiliated with anything to do with these cookbooks, but they're just my favorite, so I thought I'd mention them. Whole30 Fast and Easy. These are really healthy recipes that are all very fast. I think they're actually all under 30 minutes. They're pretty simple. They don't have a lot of ingredients, and normally they turn out pretty good. Another one that I like is Recipe 10 Eats. Now, I will say these are not healthy and they are not easy recipes. Be the most delicious meals you have ever cooked and tasted. Before I move on, I also want to mention that this Whole30 book has a lot of information on how to cook. So if you're brand new at cooking, much less meal planning, this teaches you how to cook. It talks about the essentials you need in your kitchen, and it teaches you a lot of the really basic stuff. Some of it I knew, a lot of it I didn't know, even though I had been cooking for years. I found this incredibly helpful, and it also goes through the Whole30 rules, and it's all about Whole30. Even if you don't want to do Whole30, I think it's a really good book because it's got a lot of really healthy recipes, but it also teaches you how to cook. Next tip, only plan 30% new recipes. So if you're just doing dinners, that's no more than 2 or 3 new meals a week. You would think it has to do with how adventurous of an eater you are, but it doesn't really. It has a lot more to do with your tolerance for failure, because even if a recipe is written perfectly, which most of them on the internet it seems like are not, like they skip stuff. Even people that I've come to trust, like Paleo Running Mama, she has some great recipes. Even some of the recipes on her website, just they don't include all the steps, or they just don't make any sense whenever I read through them, or something. So sometimes these meals that I make they just don't turn out the way that I expect them to, and my family is just kind of like, okay. And so the more recipe failures you have, the more revolt you're going to get within your family. This tip kind of goes with the last one, which is before trying a new recipe, you need to read the entire thing. This is something that I learned from the Whole30 cookbook, and she makes a really good point, because sometimes you'll be like in the recipe, you won't have noticed that you're supposed to have cashews in water for 3 hours before you start the recipe, or you won't realize that the milk needs to be room temperature or whatever. There are some recipes that have major surprises that are things that you could have done if you had realized it and you had set them out. So before you ever put a recipe on your schedule for that week, you need to know what extra steps it might require. Another good habit to get into is to, if it's a new recipe that you're going to cook for dinner that night, is to read it again in that morning so that you know and you remember all the things you need to do. Okay, so this tip has a lot more to do with trying to stick to a new diet than it does to meal planning, but it kind of goes along with it, and it's something that I've started doing. Anytime you leave your house, whether it's for work or for errands or whatever, take snacks with you. Take snacks that go with your diet so that whenever you get really hungry, you can eat an apple or a banana or a Lara bar or something small to keep you just satiated enough to where you're not willing to like go get pizza or McDonald's or something where you're so hungry that you make a really, really bad decision. It also helps to eat right before you go to the grocery store. My next tip, don't forget to thaw your meat. I normally do it the morning of. I've always had these great intentions of doing it at the beginning of the week and letting it thaw in the refrigerator, but that never happens. And I'm always afraid that I'm going to waste a bunch of meat, or I don't know. I just have a bunch of hangups. So anyway, I do it every morning. Another good time to do it is the night before. Okay, the next tip is about parachute meals. I call them parachute meals because they are there to come to your rescue. They're meals that you always have the ingredients for, which for us are spaghetti and salad. Parachute meals are really important because they are something that you can slip in there and you keep yourself from doing things like ordering pizza or going to get takeout, because there's something. The parachute meal should also be very quick, because that's the other thing too, is like normally it's last minute or you've put off dinner a little bit longer than you planned on, and now you need to fill everybody's bellies up real fast. So a parachute meal should take 20 minutes to make. That's why ours is spaghetti and salad, because both of those take about 20 minutes. Shop your own pantry and fridge. So if there are ingredients that you didn't use last week because you missed a meal and you had to put in a parachute meal instead, or if you raise chickens or turkeys, that's what we do. We raise meat chickens and meat turkeys, and we have a lot of that kind of meat. And so I will choose a lot more chicken meals and turkey meals than I will, say, pork or beef, because we don't raise those animals. There are also things I just keep stocked up in my pantry that I like to use. I prefer to use over things that I have to go out and buy separately. You'll feel better about your life if you shop your pantry. If you shop what you already have, if you use that stuff instead of letting it go bad while you're getting new stuff. That's a really bad feeling, is when you have to throw out a lot of produce that you didn't use because you might have forgotten about it. You bought it and then you didn't think about it because life is busy, or you thought about it but then you didn't really find a time that you could have used it. It's important to your overall success to try to use the things that you've bought, unless of course they're unhealthy and you just need to get rid of them. That is definitely worth getting rid of those. Otherwise, try to use the things that you've got so that you don't have these negative feelings associated with your meal planning. Let's talk a little bit more about shopping your own pantry. If there is an ingredient that you consistently buy and you consistently don't use week after week, you should probably stop buying it. Now, this is a do as I say, not as I do, because I continue to buy butternut squash. My husband likes it. I know that it's healthy for us, and I have these dreams all the time, repeatedly, of using butternut squash in recipes. But when it comes to cooking it, I just don't like having to peel it, and then I don't like having to chop it up, and then I just don't like the taste of it either. So I don't know why I keep doing it. They stay on my counter week after week, and then eventually I just throw them away, because I'm sure that after 2 months they are no longer good, but they still seem to be good. So that's concerning to me always. But one time I even bought a big box of like 10 butternut squash from the Mennonites because there was a really good deal on them. And I ended up feeding them all to our chickens. I digress. So if there's something that you have aspirations to use, but you don't really use, and it kind of becomes this waste of money, like over and over, you should probably not keep buying it and just cut your losses and either throw it away this time or just don't buy it in the future. Try to plan what I think of as complementary meals. So whenever I cook whole chicken, I'm expecting to have a good amount, at least 3 or 4 cups of chicken left over. And I plan another meal either like later that week or early the next week that uses that. So meals like gumbo or chicken chickpea curry, things that you would buy a rotisserie chicken for, I use the extra whole chicken, save it in the refrigerator, and then use it for a meal later on in the week. If from the week before you have leftover roast, you can look up recipes that use that leftover roast. I find it satisfying to use the leftover ingredients in a way other than the way that I already cooked it. So you're not just eating leftovers. You're creating a new meal out of your leftovers. My next tip, schedule leftovers or on your own meals every week. I normally do these 2 to 3 times a week, normally for lunch. As much as I love cooking, I don't always love my kids kind of not wanting to eat what I've made. So I tell them, fine, you can eat mac and cheese, but I'm not going to make it. You're on your own. So, and the same with leftover. I don't like whenever leftovers have to get thrown out. Just like throwing dollars in the trash can to me. So I really like to utilize leftovers, and sometimes I need reminders for that. But also we need an opportunity. So if you're always cooking new meals, there's no time really to eat the leftovers. Some people like to freeze leftovers. I don't like to cook things that have been frozen, but that's just a personal preference. That's also another option. So you can freeze them and then use them in a week or two if you really like the meal, but you don't want to get tired of it. Okay, my next tip is don't give up on the week after missing a couple meals. So let's say it's Wednesday. You missed cooking dinner yesterday, and then today the butternut squash meal that you have planned for tonight is not really sounding all that good. So it's easy to just say, oh, this week is a wash and I'm just going to completely give up. But don't. Try to cook what you planned on Thursday. Mix them around if there's something that came up that you didn't anticipate. If you already have the ingredients for it, you can mix the meals around for the week and still use those, and it still feels like your meal plan worked, even if you didn't follow it to the letter. But it's a lot better than just giving up and having everybody eat cereal for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Okay, I hope this video has been very helpful to you. Let me know in the comments if you have anything else that you would add, or if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.